Greetings and salutations. This is David Duford here at BuyLifeInsuranceForBurial.com, where I help people like you find affordable and quality life insurance even with health history issues. Today's video is entitled The Official Guide to Getting Life Insurance with Anemia. This video is specifically for people like you who maybe have issues with all sorts of different kinds of anemia. If you've had problems or health issues as it relates to anemia, this video will go into explicit detail as to what your options are for all sorts of life insurance coverage. So if you've been declined for life insurance because you have some sort of anemia, or if you've been priced up, or if you're just flat out concerned doing your due diligence that you may or may not be able to qualify for life insurance with anemia, please stick around. This video will be very informative and answer pretty much all your questions as it relates to your eligibility. So let's start with an overview before we get started. So first of all, I'm going to introduce you to myself and my company. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, we're going to talk about the types of anemia discussed in today's presentation, answer the question next of whether or not you really can qualify for life insurance if you have anemia, and then talk about which options are available if you have anemia, and then talk about the next steps of how to apply. My name is David Duford. I'm the owner of BuyLifeInsuranceForBurial.com. I've been licensed as a life insurance agent since 2011, and since then I've helped over 3,000 families personally with their life insurance needs. In addition to helping families with life insurance, I'm also a published author. This book down here in the lower left-hand corner, probably the most relevant book of the few I've written. It's called The Official Guide to Buying Life Insurance, or Buying Final Expense Life Insurance. It's really designed for people who are looking for a final expense life insurance plan and want to see what their options are. I also own a national insurance agency. I recruit and train new insurance agents in this business to help them basically do what I teach now in their own communities and help them help other people. Lastly, I'm married with children as well. My fourth one on the way. Anytime now we'll have new baby Ella in our life, so we're looking forward to it. Okay, so let's talk about the types of anemia discussed in today's presentation. So we're just going to get right down to it. The sickle cell is one of the ones we're going to talk about, kind of the implications for life insurance there. We're going to talk about hemolytic anemia, pernicious anemia, iron deficiency, aplastic anemia, pretty much everything that we talk about as far as what your eligibility for coverage is in this particular circumstance with anemia will pertain to these particular conditions. So you may just be flat out wondering, can you qualify for life insurance with anemia? And the answer is yes, most likely at least. And the longer answer, it just depends on some factors, including your age. You could be 25 to 85-year-old, and usually there's an option for you. It also depends on other health issues as well. And I don't want to promise that I can qualify you for something because I just don't know until I interview you and in fact find and collect your health information. Because ultimately it's not 100% sure if anybody can qualify until that's done first. But either way, let me show you some of the potential options would be if you could qualify, just to give you an idea of what your options would be. So let's talk about the types of life insurance for anemic. So here's the thing. When it comes to life insurance, if this is your first time buying life insurance or you don't have much experience buying life insurance, the key thing to buying life insurance is you want to match a life insurance product with your personal goals. There is no such thing, I repeat, there is no such thing as a life insurance product that is a one-size-fits-all. Here's why. Not all life insurance is the same. Some products are better in circumstances than others. Plus, you also have to consider what is acceptable by each life insurance company as far as underwriting goes. Some companies will be okay with certain underwriting issues, others won't. And you have to be able to navigate through not only the different types of life insurance options, but also the different types of companies as well. Kind of as an aside, this is why I'm a broker. I shop around to try to find the best quality of coverage for my client. So I work with different insurance companies and I take people who have, let's say, anemia and figure out which of the companies will give or offer the best deal. That's the best way to get the best value. So now that I've described that, let's talk about what option would suit you best in whatever circumstance. So the first thing you got to do is ask yourself this important, vital question. What do you want a life insurance plan to do for you? It's important to ask this question to ascertain what it is that you truly want to accomplish. So maybe you want to buy a policy to cover for final expenses. In case you don't know what final expenses are, this would be burial insurance or cremation coverage. Or perhaps you have some final expenses that are not related to either of those that you just want extra coverage for. So when we look at final expenses, we usually want what's called permanent coverage, the kind that does not cancel under any circumstances. Although this costs more money, it's the more appropriate approach, and we'll get into more of the specifics later. It's the appropriate approach to this kind of problem because the nature of death is that it is certain, but we just don't know when it will occur. We also have the potential for income replacement. So if you're a younger guy or gal listening to this video, you do well in your career, just imagine yourself disappearing. You're gone. You die suddenly. What would your family do next? How would they financially survive? Would their lifestyle be dramatically changed? Do you fear the worst would happen? If these are concerns that you have deep down and you've thought of these already, an income replacement plan would be a fantastic idea. Now, what we usually suggest is a temporary insurance plan. A temporary insurance plan only covers for a period of time, namely 10, 15, 20, 30 years. But the reason it's temporary is to maximize the amount of coverage, so we get a lot more coverage in a permanent plan than a temporary plan per dollar of coverage if all is equal. And we don't necessarily need it later in life, right? Because if you do a good job saving for retirement, building a pension, building a retirement, then once you reach retirement, you won't need to replace your income because your retirement already does that automatically. So income replacement is a great reason to have life insurance. Also, debt repayment, namely mortgage protection. If you have a mortgage for several $100,000 and you die, will you potentially lose the house? Sure, you could put it up for sale, but if anybody is in a fire sale situation where they have to sell, usually they sell it for a lot less. That's how a lot of businesses go out of business, because they just have to sell off to pay off estate taxes. And if the surviving spouse doesn't want to run the business, they'll sell it at a way marked down number. You know, these are things that you want to have on top of things, is a plan that will cover in case, so you don't have to do things on a fire sale basis. You can take your time or just stay in the home and not have the premium to pay anymore. So good plans usually either are going to be some sort of permanent or temporary protection. Just depends on the circumstances. So the other question you need to ask and answer is, what's your budget do you have in mind? I'm a big advocate, being that I work mostly with seniors. I can sell a life insurance policy to anybody that wants it. But most of the people I see are 50 and older, and a lot of them are on a fixed income. And certainly if you're not over 50 and you're under 50, you probably have a budget just like me. So you got to keep your budget, okay? You got to find a plan that you can afford easily, that you won't worry about. And even if there is financial stress in your life later, you won't have to even consider dropping because it would be because it was too expensive to begin with. So get an idea of what you can afford. What do people buy? I mean, it's across the board here. I mean, I've seen premiums for policies $15, $20 a month, $50 a month, $500 a month, higher. A lot of what I do when I work with a client is figure out what is affordable to them, and then figure out what options are available at those budget levels. So there's 3 potential life insurance options here, ladies and gentlemen. They are term, whole, and guaranteed issue. And so let's jump in and take a look at how it works. So we've got term insurance, and if you have anemia and you're looking at term insurance, basically term insurance, as I mentioned briefly earlier, is coverage that is good for a temporary period of time. The benefits include your premiums stay the same with most term insurance products through the course of the term. But after the term, the downside is you could outlive it. Now, like I said earlier, though, usually you get a substantial amount of coverage for the amount of money that you're paying into it relative to permanent products. So if you want a lot of coverage, you just want pure insurance, and you understand there's a cancellation date, and you just need it for a temporary period of time, term insurance may be the best choice. Now, with fully underwritten products, traditional underwriting may or may not require an exam. A lot of companies don't require an exam, by the way. It's a little more difficult than getting a simplified issue whole life plan. And what my experience has been, if you have anemia and you're looking at any kind of term insurance or whole life insurance with traditional underwriting, there's a large availability of coverage, but it's going to vary wildly depending on the severity of anemia. Again, with most health conditions, as you'll find, it's all a severity-based concern. Someone with minor blood pressure problems might pay less than somebody who has major blood pressure problems. It makes sense. And it's something that flows into anemia as well. And what I find too is if you have sickle cell anemia over 40, you may qualify. Again, it's going to depend upon some questions, the severity of said anemia. And then also, the other thing you got to consider, ladies and gentlemen, is that most people don't just have one problem, they've got several. And so the other circumstances may have an impact on your insurability with a company based on the combination of health issues. So under no circumstances am I telling you can qualify for coverage. It just depends upon your application process and seeing what the underwriter would offer. Now let's talk about whole life insurance and some of the differences. For whole life insurance for people with anemia, basically whole life is the opposite of term insurance. It offers permanent protection. The benefits include rates that never increase. The exception to this is universal life. Universal life is permanent protection with non-guaranteed rates unless you have guaranteed universal life. That acts as in a sense, like whole life insurance. It's not whole life, but it acts in very similar ways. So rates don't go up with whole life insurance. They may go up with universal life unless you get the right kind. The coverage usually starts from the first day if you can qualify, and you can't cancel due to age or health. The drawbacks include higher premium dollar of coverage than term. So you may be asking, why do I want to pay more money for less coverage, if that's what you're suggesting, Dave? Well, it just comes down to what your goals are, right? So it doesn't make sense to buy a plan that cancels before you die, right, if you want to use it for final expenses. So a lot of final expense plans are permanent protection, usually whole life or guaranteed universal life, because they don't cancel. You don't have a risk of paying all this money in just to outlive it and then die with nothing. So whole life in those situations, when there's permanent problems they need permanent protection. And whole life or guaranteed universal life plans are excellent for those circumstances. Now, as far as underwriting goes, look, it's the same anemia underwriting guidelines apply to non-med or fully underwritten whole life or guaranteed universal life plans. So they're going to be stricter. It's going to depend on the severity factors. But what I'll tell you is that if you have a more severe case of anemia, and if it's a case where more traditional underwriting is going to make it problematic for you, then simplified issue whole life insurance is a good choice if the other methods don't work or if your case is so severe. So simplified issue underwriting has looser underwriting. It's less aggressive underwriting, which means people with more health issues, generally speaking, can get easier qualified. So this is an option that I keep for my clients. Again, I say this all because I don't know what your circumstances are as far as qualifying, but I want to make sure you understand there are options depending on the severity. The last but not least option is guaranteed issue whole life insurance for anemics. Now, this is something I only impose if there's no other choices. This is the last-ditch effort. Now, it works great because, A, there's no health questions asked. That's why they call it guaranteed issue. And also, the premiums never go up, and neither does the coverage cancel due to age or health. As good as this sounds, there are some potential downsides to guaranteed issue whole life, and namely, there's no coverage for natural death in the first 2 years. You are covered for accidental death, and there's a lower limitation of coverage. If you're looking for a lot of coverage, you're going to have to buy multiple $25,000 plans. You can do that. The bottom line here is what you're looking at is a plan that's a last-ditch effort. A lot of anemics with less severe issues will do fine with the other options presented earlier. So let's say you're interested in possibly applying for some sort of life insurance as an anemic. The process of applying is very simple. Basically, you just find an agent that you want to work with, hopefully someone who's a broker that represents different companies and can easily draw up quotes for you. That's me. I'll nominate myself, of course. And second, after the agent listens to your insurance needs, I would draw up a quote for you. And then once accepted, we would just do business either over email or over the phone. It's very simple. It's not an invasive process. Insurance companies make it very simple to do this without having to go in and drive 30 minutes away, sit in an office. None of that stuff is required anymore. After a couple of days, if you've been approved, you will be notified of your decision, approved or otherwise, several days, several weeks usually, and then several weeks later you usually get your policy email, and that's pretty much the process. It's very simple. So if you like the idea of applying for life insurance as an anemic, here's what to do next. Call me at 888-626-0439 to speak with me live. Please leave a voicemail if you don't get me, because I am usually tied up on the phone helping people throughout the day. Also, you can just go to my website, go to buylifeinsuranceforburial.com, request a free quote. Do that by going to the contact box, sending me a message, or going to the bottom. There's another message box. You can send it either place, whatever's more convenient. Please like this video, subscribe, or comment below if you have any questions. And I want to thank you for watching, and I hope I helped you out in your endeavor to find quality life insurance as an anemic. Take care.